My name is Raven. At 23 years old, I founded and funded my first multi-million-dollar acquisition. I did it with no help, no mentorship, and no college degree. So today I want to talk about speed in business. Anyone has the opportunity to move with speed. You just have to choose to do it. So there was no difference between me and anybody else when it came down to figuring out that I needed to move with speed. I just made the decision to move as fast as possible. And that's really the difference between, an A player and everybody else, is that you make the decision that you're always going to want to move fast, that you try to move faster than everyone else, and you take the time to figure out how to move fast, right? So it's not just me, but anyone can do this if you actually make a commitment to moving fast and choosing speed over everything else, right? And so as time had gone on, through me learning more and more about business, the faster I've gotten. And as I move faster, I learn better ways to get faster. Just a couple quick examples of what it means to move with speed is like, for example, when you have customers in a business, they love it when you move with speed. The business that chooses to quickly interact with their customers and get feedback on how to make their product better, those are the ones that are going to keep the business. And most people, they're just not moving fast. So you could get into almost any business, and the second you start moving with speed, your business is already better than all the competition, because nobody's trying to move fast. Everyone's moving at a snail's pace. No one cares about having the fastest quality of service, right? And so as fast as you can go without damaging the quality of service should be how fast you should move in everything. And the customers notice right away. When you take an opportunity to get back to a customer fast, to respond to a quote fast, to write contracts fast, to close a deal fast, those are all things that people notice, and more people want to work with you. And when they compare it to everybody else who doesn't have speed at the top of their mind, they don't even compare. So you automatically are already miles ahead of all the competition just because you've made the decision that you want to move faster. It's important to not only move fast, but to learn fast. The people who are able to learn faster than everyone else are the ones who get ahead. And learning for everyone's field is going to be a little bit different, but what's important is that you're always looking for more information. At this point, I'd say I study between 2 and 3 hours a day still on business acquisition. Even after I've acquired my own company, I still am studying, how to get better every single day. I'm still spending 2 to 3 hours in the study room, either listening to podcasts or reading books or trying to get in contact with people who are ahead of me to get that information. And so I know how valuable that information is. And I think that I put time limits on how long it's going to take me to get to the next level. And so by forcing yourself to have a time limit on, hey, you know what, I'm going to achieve this in the next 3 months. I'm going to achieve this in the next 6 months. That's when I'm actually able to move ahead quicker than any of the competition. And the thing about time limits is that it's pretty much all in your head, right? So there's nothing stopping you from saying this 3-month project should take 2 weeks, right? So there's no project out there that you actually know the timeline for. So why would you give yourself so long? I've talked to friends of mine and I tell them, all right, let's come up with a game plan to get you to the next level. And they say, okay, this sounds good. What should we do? And I say, well, give me a timeline. How long do you think it's going to take to get this project done? They'll tell me, okay, give me 3 months. And then we'll talk about it. And I say, okay, why did you choose 3 months? And it's pretty much always arbitrary, right? There's no reason that they actually chose the 3 months, except for in their mind, it sounded good. But I'm like, okay, why don't we cut that down to 2 weeks? Why don't we cut that down to 1 week, right? What does it take for you to mentally chop the time into a more manageable task? Because the farther out it is, the more complex it's going to be and the less motivating it is, right? So if I have a task that I need to complete and I give myself 6 months, I probably won't even finish it because the timeline is so far out. Who knows where I'll be in 6 months? And I don't even know if I could stay motivated for 6 months straight, right? So why don't I try something different? Why don't I say, let's see how far I get in 2 weeks. And even if I don't hit that goal within the 2 weeks, I'm much farther ahead because I force myself to get as much work done as possible within that time frame. And so because I see that time frame as something that's a hard limit, I force myself to think, not only move faster, but also think differently about solving the problem. Because since I'm not able to give myself 6 months to figure it out, I need to come up with way more creative solutions in order to solve the problem in the timeline that I've given myself. So, Elon Musk does this all the time, is that when he has a project that takes 6 months, you guys should read his biography. They talk about it all the time. Every time he has a big project, his team tells him it takes 1 year, 6 months, and he tells them, no, it's going to take us 1 month. We're going to get it done overnight. And they're like, no, that's impossible. And he says, get it done anyways. A lot of people criticize him because he puts out a lot of he quotes a lot of timelines that he never actually reaches. But what you don't understand is by him forcing those quicker timelines, he's moving his business ahead way farther than it would have been if he would have given more accurate timelines. If he would have said, oh, it's going to take us about 5 years to figure out the Cybertruck, right? If he would have said that, then he probably would have taken 10 or 15 years to get it done. But instead he said it was going to take him 5 years, or it's going to be done at the end of this year. And, 5 years later, we have one of the best electric trucks ever, or we have the best electric truck. And it's only because he forced his team to move with speed, which they wouldn't have otherwise. And, that's one of the important things about being a business owner and being a business leader, is that you force your team to move quick, because most people aren't thinking about moving with speed. It's just something that most people aren't doing. They're not really trying to figure that out. They're more focused on the day-to-day task. What is one step that I need to do to get ahead? What are the main things I need to focus on? And that's kind of their world. Like, they're solving problems at a smaller scale. And so you need to kind of be able to open up their minds about the process and force them to move into a position where they have to think faster. So by giving your people shorter timelines and forcing yourself to move with more speed, you're always going to stay one step ahead of the competition, and you're always going to be able to have a more robust business, because you're always out competing yourself. So there's a good story I like to talk about when there was a study done between two groups of people. They were told to make a pot in a pottery class, and in the pottery class, they had given them two options. They said, all right, we need half of the group to just take this one pot. We're going to give you 30 days. And over the 30 days, we want you to perfect it. And then they told the other half of the group that what you're going to need to do is work on as many pots as possible. So over the next 30 days, we want you to make 100 pots. And so, of course, at the end, what happened is that the group who worked on 100 pots had way better pots at the end. But the people who worked on one pot, they still had trash pots at the end of the 30 days. And the reason why is because it's more about repetition, right? The more you do, the better you get. So trying to perfect everything is what's going to slow you down, right? It's not about the perfection. It's about putting out as many examples, putting out as many opportunities to hit the target as possible. Because in business, it's almost like the lottery. You can have as many tickets as you want to play, right? You don't need to just play your one hand. You can go as many hands as you want. So if you're trying to shoot for a target, right, why would you just try to shoot one arrow perfectly and take one shot? Why not shoot 1,000 arrows and hope one hits the bullseye, right? And so that's kind of where you need to be, is that when you see an opportunity, you need to take as many shots at that opportunity as possible, and don't worry about perfection. Kind of fail your way to the success point, because the more times that you put the arrow near the target, the closer you're going to get. But there is nothing stopping you from taking more chances. So you can shoot 1,000 arrows and one's going to hit. And that's all you need. All you need in business is that one hit. Another thing in business is that, especially when you're in a market that has high competition, is there's always going to be the first mover's advantage. And what's important about the first mover's advantage is that anyone can have it. You just need to be the first to move there. When you see an opportunity before anybody else, it's very important that you take action on it before anyone else as well. And so even in, let's say you want to be a content creator, you can go ahead and look at an opportunity to maybe edit your videos in a new style that you think is going to blow up. So you start looking at that style. Now, because you're going to be the first one to take action on it, you get that advantage of being the one. And so then after that, everyone's going to copy you, but you'll actually catch the trend before everyone else. And therefore you'll be able to move, and therefore you'll be able to actually win a majority of the new business, because you were the first one to do it, right? And it's not always about being the best, because again, most of the time, the people who do it first aren't the best, but the people who do it first get the advantage of playing the game longer, because they were there for a longer time. Over time, every business becomes obsolete. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you play the game long enough, you'll become obsolete. The only way to not become obsolete is to always keep reiterating the processes you already have, right? So if you're able to get ahead of the competition by already being in business, then what's now important is that you can keep that lead by reiterating the process that you already have. The second that you stay stagnant, you start to lose. Anytime you're in business and you're not moving forward, then you're regressing. You need to progress all the time. And if you don't, you regress. And the worst part about that is that you leave opportunity that could have easily been yours, right? And so the great example everyone always talks about is going to be like Blockbuster. They already had the advantage of the whole market. And because they weren't continually progressing and they didn't want to take action on, the next wave, which would have been the internet, they missed out. And that's why Netflix is what everyone watches now. And it's pretty simple. It's not that it was so complex, because people always ask, how is it that Blockbuster was able to lose such a great lead? Their advantage was huge. And the problem is that they didn't move with speed on the opportunities that they had. When the internet age came by, they just assumed they wanted to double down on people going into the store to make money. And they were focused on, selling more candy per customer that comes to the door when they rent their movies. That was their main focus for the year when Netflix started taking over. And by the time they realized that they needed to get digital, the opportunity was already too late. And so if they would have just taken a fraction of their team and put them towards going all in on the internet, they would have already had the manpower, the billions of dollars behind their name, the leverage to outcompete Netflix. But they didn't move with speed on it. They just kind of took it in a nonchalant manner. And so that was the demise of Blockbuster, is not being able to see the opportunity. And the real demise of, and that was the demise of Blockbuster, is not being able to actually realize that if they would have just had a portion of their company moving with speed on all new projects that they had in mind, then they could have stayed on top almost for eternity, right? Or until the next business model comes around and they have to figure that one out. But the writing was on the wall. There was there was no big surprise to Blockbuster. One day they woke up and they were just losing. They actually had an opportunity to work with Netflix directly, and they just didn't move with speed on it. They just chose to be lackadaisical about taking the opportunity, and because of that, they weren't able to win in the long term. And there was never not an opportunity for them to take the other route. They could have always at any point been able to find a way to stay ahead of the competition. Another thing you'll see in big business, which anyone can be, in theory, big business, depending on how many rules you come across in your company. And what happens is that as you start to build and develop a true company, you almost get more bureaucratic by nature. It's not that companies want to have more red tape, but what actually happens is that as time goes on, you want to create better systems. And as those systems are created, you want to make sure that those systems can't be broken. And so the only way to not break those systems is to create more bureaucracy, right? So every model and every process has a checks and balance system. And so it's important to have those. But what happens is as the company grows, those checks and balances actually slow down the company from moving with speed, right? Because what happens is some new guy who just got hired as an intern has a good idea, and he passes it on to his boss, his manager. The manager passes it on to their manager, and by the time he gets to the C-suite, it's lost in translation. So they never make it to the top. The opportunity for new ideas stagnate, and they get stopped by the bureaucracy in the middle levels, right? The best way to stop that bureaucracy, even though at some point it is inevitable because you need to make sure that your system runs in an efficient manner, is that you need to get rid of as many blockages between new information and the decision makers, right? So if you're here at the top or you're a CEO and you need to find out what's going on, let's say you have a warehouse and you know that at the warehouse level, these guys are working in the warehouse every day and they're trying to figure out ways to make it more efficient. If you have these A players who are in the game playing every single day, they're going to have a lot of insight for you. So the harder you make it for yourself to get that insight from, the C-suite all the way down to, the everyday worker, the harder it's going to be for you guys to move with that speed and transition. And so you need to be able to find a way where you can get that information fast. And so getting rid of as much bureaucracy as possible is another way that you can always stay ahead of the competition when it comes to moving with speed. Another thing that's important to realize is that moving slowly actually costs money. Even though you don't see it every day, there's an opportunity cost which comes to play every single time you don't make a decision. So by you waiting to make a decision, let's say to add some new equipment to your company or sign some big contract, for every moment that you delay, you're actually losing that money that you could have made by having that new system, process, or equipment. So that's one of the main problems with business owners, is that they only see a loss when it's on paper. But you need to also understand the loss of opportunity cost. And so when you don't take action on a new business, when you don't take action on some new process that you could have created, when you don't take action on getting some new piece of equipment for your company, what ends up happening is that even though on paper you haven't taken a loss, in reality you have. Because if you would have moved faster, if you would have went and captured that portion of the market, you'd have more income coming into your business. But you chose not to move fast on it just because you didn't see the direct profitability of taking action. But you have to always calculate the opportunity cost. So by you not taking action, how much money did you really lose? And it always ends up being more than if you would have done what you knew you needed to do.